Hey there, it's Kristen, and today we are talking about Charmed Season 3, Episode 7. This is a wild one. So, in this episode, the Charmed ones are taking on the Tomb of Chaos while also trying to navigate even greater challenges in their personal and professional lives. And, there was something about this episode that at first kind of like tease of it when we got to see that sneak peek, it reminded me of one of my favorite episodes of the original Charmed, which was Brain Drain, where the Source taps into Piper's brain to alter her perception of reality and kind of like persuade her to give up the Charmed One's powers. That was one of my favorite episodes, and I originally got like a little bit of a hint of that in the teaser for this episode, but I have to say I was disappointed in this one. They kind of introduced this idea of a hell maze, or this it's the Tomb of Chaos, that these mythical, magical, evil monsters have been coming out of from the start of this season. And the Charmed ones have been trying to figure out, like, what does this tablet mean? What do these monsters mean? Why are we still allergic to each other? And it all kind of ties back into that. And so they do this spell. We find out later on in the episode. It's kind of a little bit of a backwards episode, where we're like thrust into this situation where we're like, what is happening? And then they start revealing, like, okay, so they figured out this spell so that they could get into the this Alcatraz, if you will, that these magical beings are kind of escaping from. They get trapped in it. It sort of takes on this kind of like perfect prison, if you will, because it uses their memories to build the place that they're trapped in, to kind of confuse them, and just make them think that this is, that they're safe and at home, but really they're like trapped in this weird prison where things are not quite right. And in kind of finding out what are those things that are sort of wrong in the scenario, they're able to find these glitches and holes in this prison and ultimately escape from it. I have to say, I was just hoping for more in this episode. I about halfway through, I was just thinking, this is so cheesy. And I don't think that, they have this whole situation where Maggie starts losing her memory, and then the other sisters start losing their memories, and it just felt very, I don't know, it felt cheesy, like it didn't make sense to me in the story. The part where I kept thinking, okay, this is starting to make sense now, or I really wish that they had gone deeper here, was when they think they got out of the prison, and then they see a picture of all three sisters with their mom. And I was like, oh, that would have been really cool if they had tapped into that. And that was like the main focus of the story, is maybe this weird perception of reality that is related to their family or their mom or something like that. I just feel like some of the story, it was so distant. A lot of it was around Mel and her job. That I felt like it didn't help us dive deeper into these people as characters, or into the story, or into their family history, or anything like that. And that's really what I've been waiting for, to see more of. And I thought this could have been that opportunity to like really dive more into like their family history through this maze, or this, this hell maze that they're trapped in. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Do you agree with that? I think as we started getting towards the end of the episode, I started liking it more. But I kind of just wish that maybe they focused more on the sisters and their family history, and maybe even connecting it back to their mom a little bit more, versus it being around the sisters, but more about Mel's job, if that makes sense. So Tez says that they love this episode. I enjoyed the sisters being the only people in it. I do think that was an interesting take. It felt like maybe this could have been at the height of, pandemic situations where they're like, okay, we really don't want to have a lot of people on set. What can we do that's kind of interesting and magical, but also has it so that only the sisters are together. We don't have to have too many people on set. And so I think that definitely worked in that sense. But I was expecting a bit more in this one, especially because, like I mentioned, it really reminded me at first glance of that Brain Drain episode, where that really had a lot of stakes. I was looking for higher stakes. Taryn says, I think it was a great episode, but I think they could have defeated a monster in this episode. Yeah, that would have been cool. Joel says, what if Melinda Warren created the prison? Actually, I mean, that might not be too far off. I mean, clearly some type of past magical person or beings or, higher ups had to have created this prison. So, I mean, maybe a past charmed ancestor definitely could have been a part of, trapping all these monsters together so that they wouldn't escape. Obviously, it didn't really work because, as we see, they connected this episode back to that rip in the dimensions that we've seen, and the girls were able to escape through that way. Yeah, I mean, maybe one of the charmed one's ancestors, maybe Melinda Warren or something like that, could have been, could have had a hand in creating this prison, maybe like an elder or something even more ancient. Maybe there's maybe they'll get into what was more ancient than elders, like angels and avatars and things like that. Maybe they'll dive into something like that as the people that created this space. Let's see what else. Madness Arcade says, I can't tell if you disliked the episode or if you were saying, hell no, you don't want to be in the maze. I would say both. I don't want to be in that maze, but also I was just expecting more in this episode. I felt like they kind of held back. I felt like things felt a bit cheesy to me. I think by the end, I liked where the story had overall gone, but the whole time they were in the Hell Maze, I just felt like it was a bit cheesy and I wasn't really impressed with that. But they did set up a situation where it looks like there's going to be a lot more monsters ahead. And I mean, looking at the promo for next week, it looks like Macy's going to be dealing with some racism as well, or just some weird, white privilege things that I'm sure will maybe even turn into some supernatural things. Also, you never know. So yeah, was not a huge fan of this episode, to be honest. I was just hoping for a bit more. But Madness Arcade says that they thought this episode was incredibly creative and different. I thought it was an interesting concept. I just think that they could have gone further. I talked a little bit earlier, but I was just saying that to me, the part that I was most excited about was when they showed that it looked like they got out of the maze, but they hadn't really, and there's a picture of them with their mom. And I think that this episode would have been really interesting for them to dive deeper into their family and their mom and things like that through the lens of the maze. So I think it was an interesting concept. I just think that it would have been cooler if they dove deeper into them as sisters and their family versus more just like Mel's side plot story about her job. Tez says, I must say, I miss seeing Macy and Mel arguing like season 1. I forgot how much they both struggle with the older sister role. Yeah, this episode, you definitely got to see that kind of come back a bit, that they, kind of think about things in different ways. And, they both are used to being the oldest or the older sister and, kind of going back and forth about how things should be done. Terrence says, do you think Harry was acting really weird when they got out of the prison? Yes, I thought so too. At first I was like, are they not really out of the prison? Is this like some weird possessed version of Harry, or is this someone pretending to be Harry and it's not really him? He seemed so strange, right? I definitely agree with that. I thought the same thing when they first saw him, when they came out of the rift. I was like, Harry, what are you doing, man? What is this? Is this even really Harry, or is this a fake out? So Tez also says, Mel said in season 1 to Jada that she's always been the oldest, but now she isn't, and Macy's the big sister. Mel always struggled with that, seeing Macy and Mel go back and forth. I loved it. Yeah, they definitely brought that dimension back in. Tez says, I was confused at first. I enjoyed trying to figure it out. Yeah, I was a little bit confused at first too. I think that there could have been a little bit more setup, but it is kind of fun when they throw you into the mix of things and you're like, wait, what's happening? Oh, okay. It definitely was a different episode. And I think that they also played a lot with different camera tricks and things and different sort of effects and things, like them doing the quicksand on the floor type of situation. Like they definitely tried to do, just take things to a different level with the production itself, which I can respect that. I just think that I was hoping for a little bit more, especially since this is probably the first time that we've had an episode like this where it did feel so different from just what we've seen in the past in terms of like the style. Madness Arcade says, I liked that Mel and Macy learn a lot from each other. I think this episode sets something up that we don't know yet, like maybe more exploration of the prison more in the future, possibly. Yeah, I think that it would be really cool, as someone mentioned earlier, to kind of dive into like who created this, like, I mean, someone had to make this sort of prison for these creatures. Why? Is someone trying to control them? Are they trying to save the world? Is there like something deeper going on there? How does it connect back to this allergy that they have? I think that they're definitely going to explore more with it. But as Jocelyn says here, I wish that, and I thought that they were going to dive more into the mom as part of the story. Like, I thought that was so interesting when all of a sudden they like showed that picture of Maggie, Macy, and Mel and Marisol. I was like, oh, what? But then they didn't really go anywhere with it. The camera blur was kind of reminiscent of Sabrina. That's what Miles said, and I definitely agree. I definitely thought of that about that as well when we were seeing some of that. I'm like, oh, it kind of looks like we're in a little bit of a dreamy sequence, maybe, or like Sabrina, where they had that blur sort of around the visuals, which some people might like, some people might not. Oh, yeah, Madness Arcade said, for some reason, this episode reminded me of the episode of the Nightmare Demon from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Yeah, a lot of people getting Sabrina vibes from this. Terrence says, I love the different camera angles in this episode. Yeah, I like that they did something a bit different. It was definitely unique. Letting the creatives do something, a little bit different, surprise us, which is really fun. Tez says, I wonder if the prison is going to be a big piece of getting rid of the monsters again. Maybe. Yeah, I definitely think it could be. And Ruth, what do you mean, like which trial and error? Oh, or like those episodes of the original? Did you get some vibes of that? Totally. But it looks like I'll say so far, like thoughts on like this overall season. I feel like from episode 3 on, I've been or episode 4 on, I've been like a lot more into the story and invested in like what's going on. This episode, the last episode, not really my huge favorites so far of the season, although like I said, I can commend them for trying to do something different in this one. I just think that they can like go further. I just think that they could go further. And then we got a comment from J-Man says, I enjoyed that the girls were the central focus of this episode. I agree. I don't think we always get to see them together. So that was really nice that they finally had an episode where they were trying to get to each other and help each other. Joel says, what if the monsters are what demons came from? That would be interesting. Sort of like what is that word? I'm trying to think of. Like they started out as monsters and then they sort of like, kind of like cavemen turning into people, but like monsters turning, evolving. That's the word I'm trying to think of. Yes, that's a great theory, Joel, of like, what if the monsters kind of evolved into what the demons are now, and maybe those were the originals, and they come from that. I think that's a really interesting theory. You could go a lot of directions with the story and, where they're going to go next. Like, are they going to focus on diving even deeper into the lore, or are they going to kind of, not dive as deep as we would want? I hope that they go further, like I said. Ruth Smith says, is this a different world or a dimension? Let me see. And then Flashberry says, did I miss something? Was it ever explained as to who opened the door to the other dimensions? Was it Macy and Harry? So what it seemed like, or at least what I got from the episode, was that they found out what the spell was to open the door. And when they tried to say it all together, it didn't work. But the trick to it was they had to each say it individually. I don't really know why, but it looks like Maggie did it first, and then she kind of went into this different dimension, or, this prison, and that's why she'd been there longer than the other sisters. And then the other sisters each kind of said it individually as well, and then that's how they kind of got sucked into this as well. So they kind of each had to say it by themselves, like maybe you can't go as a group, you can only go as like an individual through the door. That's what it seemed like. So hope that clears things up, or if anyone else, maybe caught something else of how that worked, feel free to let us know. But I want to hear from you guys. Yay or nay? Do you love this episode? Not a fan? I want to hear your thoughts. Out of all the episodes that we've gotten so far this season, kind of where does this one rank for you? So let me know. I'm curious. For me, I feel like this is one of those ones that is not really my favorite, but I think it's still in a better direction than, maybe what we've gotten in season 2, if you know what I mean. Joel says maybe they had to say the spell one by one because it's one at a time. Yeah, I think that could make sense. Malik says that they love the sisterly moments. That's always my favorite too. That's why I was hoping this episode was just gonna have more with to do with their family, and especially since they're all just the 3 of them together. Like this could have really just taken it to the next level. That's what I think. J-Man says I enjoyed this episode way more than the one from last week. I could see that. I could see why. We finally got the sisters together. Tez says, I loved it, but more could have been done. I agree with that. I think they could have gone further. Flashberry says, this episode was okay. It's not my thing either. I'm glad I'm not alone. Shannon says, it was all right. So, Jocelyn says, I have mixed feelings. It was all right. I agree. I think that's where I'm at. I think this was better than what we were doing in season 2. I think this was one of the weaker episodes. I was really loving episodes I would say 4 and 5 were probably my favorites so far. And Taryn says that they thought this episode was good, but they think the next episode, 308, is going to be their favorite because they can relate. Yeah, in the next episode, we get to see these microaggressions of a white woman on Macy, talking about her hair and her skin color and things like that. And it just kind of seems like she's a board member maybe of Safe Space and just kind of being weird. And I think that that's going to be something a lot of people are going to be able to relate to, especially a lot of people of color, just dealing with these weird microaggressions from people. So I'm interested to see how they're going to tackle that with Macy. It looks like just from the little bit of footage that we see in the promo, it looks like she's gets very upset by it, which is understandable. So I'm curious to see how they're going to tackle that, because I do like seeing how they bring in the real world issues like race and gender and oppression and things like that into the story. And as Miles says, I'm curious to see how they're going to tie that in magically, maybe that woman is a demon or something, or maybe she's some other magical being, or maybe she's one of the monsters, or maybe she's not. Maybe she's possessed, or who knows, really. We could go in a million different directions. Or maybe she's just, maybe she's just a lady. But I'm curious to see how they're going to bring a monster into this next episode. Because like I said, at the end of this episode, it does look like they're introducing way more monsters coming into the picture, interesting theory from Joel, who says maybe if you take a piece of each monster or object, they become the cure of the sister's allergy. I mean, that would be interesting, if they maybe, I don't know, get a piece of each one, mix it all together and make some kind of potion that could cure them. That would be interesting. Tez says, Mel was awesome, standing up for what she believes in. I love that. Yes, I thought that was actually that was one of the parts of the episode I did really like, was seeing Mel stand up and the fact that she was still able to keep her job because she encouraged other students to speak up for what they believed in as well. And I just remember seeing that shock on Mel's face when Kevin was like, you still have a job. We fought for you. And actually the dean is under fire now. I was like, wow. And the way that she looked was like, I can't believe that these people stood up for me and that I won this situation. And I thought that was really cool. Madness Arcade says, I did like Sarah's range in this episode. She's good at playing a paranoid amnesiac. And then J-Man says, I was glad to see a few scenes between Macy and Mel. It was refreshing to see their dynamic as sisters, Macy being the one who uses fact while Mel being the one who uses passion. I mean, I think that explains them perfectly. Actually, yeah, Macy's the fact, Mel is the passion, and Maggie is the emotion. I definitely agree with that. This is a outside of Charmed quick question that I will address. Madness Arcade says, are you going to review Secrets of Sulphur Springs? It's out on Disney Plus. I kind of want to. I actually really liked Secrets of Sulphur Springs. I have to still watch the finale. I was away, as many of you know, getting engaged when the finale was happening. So I didn't get to see that yet. But I really liked the mystery of the show. So I'm thinking of, I still have a lot of South by Southwest stuff to get out. I have a really, really cool interview with Jenna Ortega that I'm super excited about, and Maddie Ziegler, and just a couple of other interviews and best of South by Southwest stuff to get out. But I do want to hopefully talk about Secrets of Sulphur Springs at some point, maybe this week or next week. Hopefully. Don't quote me on it, but I did like it. So if anyone likes a good mystery, time travel, I recommend Secrets of Sulphur Springs. It's a little slow in the middle, but it was good. I liked it. Jocelyn says, I'm curious to see if the Shade Group is going to become a larger part of the story like last season. Maybe they will have some shady people that are part of Vivian's plan. That is true. Just because Vivian's gone, maybe, I mean, was Vivian really like the head honcho, or is there like more... was Vivian really the one in charge, or is there someone like higher up than her? You know, I'm not so sure. Maybe there's more people that are part of the Shade Group that kind of know what's going on. I am still upset about the fact that Rosemary never had like a real storyline. I thought that maybe she was going to kind of wake up from her coma and be the real big bad or something, and be the one that Charmed ones have to go up against, but I don't know. I just think that they introduced this really interesting story with Vivian and the Shea Group and everything, and it kind of didn't go where I was hoping it would go. But, you know, either this or that. I'm going to start wrapping things up unless you guys have any other comments or things you want to talk about related to Charmed. Like I said, I have a whole bunch of South by Southwest videos coming. I also have interviews for a week away. I also have potentially Sulphur Springs if I get a chance to do a review of that. It was really good. And yeah, just lots and lots and lots of content coming out. I feel like I've just been like posting nonstop. So hope you guys will check out some of those videos as well. Another comment from Tez, who says, what if the last monster that will escape from the prison is the strongest and worst of them all that wreaks havoc on the world? Yeah, maybe like an Eldritch Terror type situation like in Sabrina, or maybe like, the big boss in, a video game kind of like that. Maybe they'll have to go up against all these smaller monsters that we think are, super scary, but then there's like a huge, bigger thing that they have to go up against. Maybe it's related to Abigail. Just a thought. Ooh, Joel, great theory. Maybe the sisters will go back in time to see how the prison was made. That would be really cool. And again, maybe that could add to some of that, family history or, Charmed history, magical history. That's what I'm hoping for. That is what I'm hoping for. I think to me, the thing that I'm always missing is just that I think that they can, I feel like sometimes they like water down the stories for us, and they could go deeper on like the actual like sisterhood and the family and the magic there. And then they don't. Like, this episode to me felt like a big example of that, where like halfway through the episode, I was kind of like, I don't know, what is happening? And then you saw that spark of like, oh, they brought in that picture of the mom, and then they didn't do anything with it. I'm like, that could have been so cool. And it just brings you deeper into the story and into that lore. And I don't know. For me, this wasn't my favorite one. But we'll keep watching, we'll keep talking. Charmed. I'm gonna start wrapping things up. Thank you guys so much for joining me each week. I'm gonna try to get back to Mondays. I've just been really busy with South by Southwest stuff the last 2 weeks, so I'm gonna try to get back to Monday reviews. Oh my gosh, why are you guys bringing up so many good theories? Joel, what if in order to close the prison for good, the sisters have to call upon the entire Charmed line? Wow. Y'all, I feel like we make up you guys make up better theories. I'd rather watch that. That sounds so good. And Taryn says, thanks for making videos. I love them. I will see you next week for the next episode. Bye. Have a good day. Thank you. Thank you. Bye, guys. I hope you have a good day. Again, if you're not subscribed already, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel. We talk Charmed. We talk literally a whole bunch of movies and TV shows. I also have a podcast called Pop Culture Planet where I talk about representation and inclusion. And a lot of times we have really fun interviews. I don't know if anyone saw my last one, but we talked to Rufio, Dante, Basco from Hook and from, Avatar The Last Airbender and, so many projects about Asian American representation. It was really, really cool. I felt like it was in a masterclass. If you haven't seen that, you should go check it out. And what else? I also have merch for Pop Culture Planet merch, like sweatshirts and stickers and things. You can check that out at teespring.com/stores/kmaldo. Also, really fun random thing. I was on TV today, on the list show TV. I'm gonna share a link to the segment, but basically I talked about upcoming TV reboots like Bel Air and the Sex and the City one and the Proud Family one that's coming up. So that was really cool. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all of your support. Thank you for watching my videos, and I will see you next time. Bye.